Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a video on the hair structure. Um, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I think that it's better to kind of understand how products work if you understand how the structure of the hair works. Um, yeah, so let's get to it. Today, to explain the hair structure, I'm going to be using string cheese. It's kind of really similar to the hair structure, actually. Okay, so there are three main components to the hair structure. There is the medulla, which is not found in a lot of hair unless your hair is really thick or textured. So it would look like that. And then the next component is the cortex. And that is how products penetrate into the hair. And it's full of pigment grains. So it kind of looks like that. And then the cuticle would be the outer layer. So I'm going to start with the cuticle, so the outer layer. There are about 6 to 10 layers in the hair. Not everyone's hair type or texture has that many layers. Curly hair coils, so the cuticle is raised in that area, which leads to tangles and frizz. So it kind of curls, and so these parts right here are the fragile parts, and that's where there are less like it's for example, with curly hair, the hair structure kind of coils like that, and so these parts right here are where the cuticle is raised, and it's the weakest. So you gotta be careful with that, especially like with brushing. So that's why I always recommend to use combs, because it breaks. It's really easy to break curly hair or textured hair, and textured hair usually has less cuticle layers than straight hair, but contains a medulla, the little thing in the center, and that's what gives it like the bounce and the strength, and like the resilience, pretty much. The fine hair doesn't have one. That's why it's so soft and kind of just limp sometimes. Yeah, so Caucasian hair and Asian hair usually have the most layers, and that's why they're so hydrophobic and sometimes kind of hard to color. It takes a little more effort to get into the cuticle. Okay, so next I'm moving on to the cuticle layers, and I'm using this because it's really similar to the hair structure, because it's very fibrous, and the hair does this. So that's why it's essential to get trims, because the longer you wait, the more layers peel off, and it just kind of breaks off. And there's no real way to kind of fix that other than getting a trim. You can get products, but it's very cosmetic. It's not long term, and it's I mean, they may be preventative, but it's, like I said, there's no real fix. So just keep your hair healthy with trims and use heat protectants. But anyways, okay, so the epicuticle is the surface layer, so it would be this outer layer, and that is like very high in cysteine, which is an amino acid, and it gives toughness to the hair, and also provides physical protection from heat and other potential threats. So this is like the first line of defense, pretty much. So just try to like keep it healthy. The next layer is the exocuticle. This layer has about 15% cysteine, so it's less strong and resilient than the A layer, but it provides similar protection, so it's kind of like a backup. And then the endocuticle, which would probably be this one. This layer only contains 3% cysteine, so it's very lightly cross-linked, which means it's the only cuticle layer to swell in the presence of water. This causes the entire cuticle layer to swell and lift away from the hair shaft, resulting in a ruffled cuticle that allows the passage of material both into and out of the hair. So pretty much like if you live in a humid city or state or whatever, your hair gets frizzy. This is why. So it's really good to use leave-ins and heat protectants, so you can keep the cuticle closed and keep it from getting poofy. And then the next layer is the cell membrane complex, and that's kind of like the cement that holds all the cuticles together. And it's made of ceramides, free fatty acids, and carbohydrates. Which is why lots of products have ceramides, amino acids, and carbohydrates in the formula to kind of replenish, what you lost or what you might lose in a chemical process or just styling. And yeah. And it's really susceptible to damage, especially like sunlight and heat damage and chemical damage. It kind of decreases the lipid content, so it's less oily and it's a lot more brittle. So it becomes less hydrophobic and more hydrophilic. So instead of repelling water, it absorbs more water. It becomes more absorbent. So that's not what you want. And then the next part of the structure is the cortex, which is the pigment grains. It kind of gives your hair that color. It's filled with millions, maybe billions probably. But as you get older, you lose them, and it could be you get gas bubbles, and that's what gives hair like that gray, white look. So the inner part of the hair shaft, hiding right behind the cuticle, this fibrous structure makes up around 80% of the hair mass. An individual hair cortex cell, a macrofibril, is built up of hundreds of keratin macrofibrils, which form long, tangled, microscopic chains. So it's just like a bunch of ropes. They're ropes of keratin. The hair cortex is responsible for hair balance and resistance to stretching. The melanin grains present in the cortex give a hair the proper color. The pigment intensity depends on the hair color, so the darker the hair, the more pigment granules it has. And the 4 chains of keratin are linked by 4 special cross linkages, which are known as the bridges. And those bridges are the peptide bonds, which bind amino acids to form proteins. We often don't pay attention to temperatures, and time, and destroy them by overheating the hair with styling tools. So this bond is broken with heat, and it's kind of like if you see there's a lot of bonding products out now to kind of help fix the hair bonds, and these are what they're fixing. The ion, the electrostatic bonds, trigger static flyaways. Extremely damaged hair equals intensified hair static. So, because shampoo is positively charged, so it raises the cuticle, and conditioner is negatively charged, and that seals the cuticle. And yeah, so that's why it's really good to use conditioner. Because some people just use shampoo. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but you need some kind of conditioning product or some negative ions to close that cuticle. Otherwise, it's just going to stay ruffled, and then it's going to be dry and damaged. So conditioner is your best friend. So the hydrogen bonds connect the amino groups of oxygen and hydrogen. They are extremely fragile because they can be broken in contact with water, harshly combed, brushed hair, or like if you towel dry your hair too roughly, those will break. So it's best to kind of like squeeze your hair, like just kind of, and if you can get like maybe a shirt, like an old shirt, and dry your hair with that because it's less textured and it will be less rough on the hair. And then the next bonds are the disulfide bonds. They are responsible for the shape of the hair, and they are sensitive to action of reducers and oxidizers, which are like perms, chemical relaxers, and stuff like that. This quality of disulfide bonds lets hair turn from curly to straight, and the other way around. So it kind of helps your hair maintain like its straight appearance. It doesn't go back like to being curly, which you straighten it unless you wash it again. Or that's why you get a perm. You're breaking these bonds and you're reshaping them into the shape that you want. So it kind of just keeps its shape. In this situation, the bonds change their position against the nearby keratin chains. It is known as a reduction process, keratin softening, which is you're softening them until you can reshape them. Okay, and then the next component or final component is the medulla, that little black dot. It occurs only in very thick hair. It's built of 1 to 2 sequences of flat cells which contain few pigment grains and aren't as cornified as the cortex cells, which are like hard, like they're like I don't know, like a hard keratin, pretty much. Hair medulla often includes small gas spaces responsible for the gray or white shade of hair, which is what I kind of was explaining earlier. And another really like little known fact about the medulla is beard hair. It's that texture. If you ever want to know what the medulla is like, feel a beard. The beard is mostly just medulla. There's not really cuticles or anything to it, which is why it's so rough and textured. Oh, okay. Well, I think that was the end of my notes. Yes. So just remember, the hair structure is very similar to this. So it's very important to keep up with your hair trims and be as rough. Be as gentle as possible. With your hair when you're styling, UC protectants. If you don't like to style your hair, just put a leave-in. Try to air dry. Don't air dry. Try to blow dry on like a medium heat or low heat, and it's gonna take a while, but it's worth saving yourself the damage. Air drying kind of just leaves the hair weak, like it stays, and the cuticles stay raised because the water isn't being pushed out the way it would be if with the blow dryer. So just keep that in mind, and just find products that are for your hair type. I know it's kind of difficult because there's so much, but if you have any questions or ever need a product recommendation or anything, feel free to message me or leave me a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And I promise it won't be some kind of like product pusher. I'm not a product snob, so I like to use what works. I like to know what works. I like to know what doesn't work, and regardless of the brand, the price. Just hit me up, and I'll try to help you out. Okay, I hope this video was informative somewhat, but I'll be posting videos more frequently. I kind of take a personal break for a while, but I'm back, and yeah. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.